Okay, so that should do it. Yes, that'll do it. Okay, so this. For those of you out in video land, we are actually moving on today to Canto, Inferno Canto 21. And this canto is going to be rather similar to simony, meaning it has to do with fraud. And in this particular case, it's kind of graft or fraud within civil and political society instead of ecclesiastical society. And I think it's called boratry as opposed to simony. The boratry is a term we do not use these days, but that was the common term long ago.
Well, that would be
How do you spell barotomy?
baratry. I think if you're saying baratry, Duncan, baratry is a modern usage, somewhat modern. It's still antiquated, but in the legal profession, baratry is a form of legal corruption by lawyers or people who are unauthorized practice of law by non-lawyers or a type of stirring up of litigation. That's baratry, and that's still kind of considered part of common law in this country.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a note, and they use the word barators. So people who do this thing are called barators.
Barators.
Barators. I got to write that out.
Okay, so let me go. Well, that's what we're talking about, and he takes it pretty seriously because we actually have a number of cantos that we're going to be talking about this.
And is the sin baratory or baratry? Is there an OR? Baratry or baratory? This is it's so rare that I find a word I've never ever heard of.
Well, I see I'm just looking, scanning this. I see. I don't know what the three lines of what is this, the certain whatever those calls those triptychs. They talk about the Italian word seems to be baratier, and it's barators.
Barateria.
Yeah.
So is that the sin or the person? Is that the sin or the person, barataria?
Sounds like their barators are the person.
Right. Okay.
There's got to be an interesting derivation of if the English, that's in English, it's not really Old English, but it is a derivation in all common law. So it has ancient roots in the English common law. So I'm thinking
according to Barolini, it says there's an archaic use of barati in English with a similar but more localized meaning. Fraud or gross negligence of a ship's master or crew at the expense of its owners or users. For Dante, barateria is the corruption of the state as simony is the corruption of the church.
Okay.
Okay.
As a technical and legal matter, barateria was the crime typically used in Dante's day as the juridical pretext of those newly come to power for exiling their adversaries. So basically, it was one of those terms that you could, if you were in power, you could accuse your opponents of committing barateria and exiling them on that pretext.
Well,
oh, I have another definition of it, more like yours, John. Baratry is a criminal offense that describes when someone encourages or instigates groundless lawsuits for profit or harassment, This could
That's
include filing repeated lawsuits. Sounds like somebody I know who used to be a president. Repeated
Yeah.
lawsuits or encouraging lawsuits between
That's-
others to create legal business for personal gain. So you're encouraging other people to have lawsuits so that you can gain money as the lawyer. That's it. Okay.
Right, and a more modern use is for corporations to use lawsuits to drive their critics away, basically drive their critics into the poorhouse,
Mhm. Right, right.
by
Yeah,
costing them too much legal money that they just give up.
right.
Okay, now let us make a chat list. Let's have John the Younger be the first reader,
How can you tell?
and then John the Elder.
Shucks.
No, then Lois. Okay, John the Younger, then Lois, and then
The
John the
beautiful,
Elder.
Lois the beautiful.
Lois the Beautiful. Yeah, excellent. And then Duncan the Pumpkin.
Well, John the Younger might remember that because of where my birthday falls, I was allowed to move off campus a year before he was.
Yes, yes.
Ah,
Those are the
there you
days.
go.
Those are the days. I had to spend 3 years in a dorm because I did not turn 21 until my senior year. So John got to move.
Really? How did that happen?
Well, Michigan State at the time, like many colleges, had a rule. It was the university used to be, as they call it, in parens patriae. If you were not
Right, local parentis.
Yeah.
local parentis, local
Yeah.
parentis, that's right. And so you had to have, you could do it, but you had to have some kind of an excuse or a good compelling reason. And I tried.
Yes.
They turned me down. They said, because they say, well, we need to have the authorities here and the adults at the dorms continue looking after you. We don't trust you to live off campus with a bunch of hooligans.
You knew what a wild child you were.
They just knew me too well. So but we made up
All
for
right.
the year, didn't we, John?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to begin our reading now. We'll read it in English all the way through. So John the Younger, you can begin reading at any moment.
All right. All right. Inferno, Canto 21. The fifth Bolgia, peculators, the elder of Zanta Zita, Malakoda, and other devils. From bridge to bridge, thus speaking other things, of which my comedy cares not to sing, we came along and held the summit, when we halted to behold another fissure of Malabolge and other vain laments, and I beheld it marvelously dark. As in the arsenal of the Venetians, boils in the winter the tenacious pitch to smear their unsound vessels o'er again, for sail they cannot, and instead thereof one makes his vessel new, and one recalks the ribs of that which many a voyage has made. One hammers at the prow, one at the stern. This one makes oars, and that one cordage twists. Another mends the mainsail and the mizzen. Thus not by fire, but by the art divine, was boiling down below there a dense pitch, which upon every side the bank belimed. I saw it, but I did not see it within it. Ought the bubbles that boiling raised, and all swell up and resubside compressed. The while below there fixedly I gazed, my leader crying out, "Beware, beware!" drew me unto himself from where I stood. Then I turned around as one who is impatient to see what it behoves him to escape, and whom a sudden terror doth unman. Who while he looks, delays not his departure, and I beheld behind us a black devil, running along upon the crag, approach. Lois?
Ah, how ferocious were his looks and fierce his gesturing, with wings spread wide and nimble feet. One of his shoulders, which were high and pointed, was laden with the haunches of a sinner he held hooked by the tendons of his heels. From our bridge, he said, "O Malabranque, here is one of Santa Zita's elders. Thrust him under while I head back for more to that city where there's such a fine supply. Every man there, except Bonturo, is a swindler. Their money turns a no into a yeah. He flung him down and turned back up the stony ridge. Never did a mastiff set loose to chase a thief make greater haste. Next.
The other sank and rose again face downward, but the demons under cover of the bridge cried, "Here the Santo Volto has no place. Here swims one otherwise than in the Cerchio. Therefore, if for our gaffs thou wishest not, do not uplift thyself above the pitch." They seized him then with more than 100 rakes. They said it here behoves thee to dance cover, that, if thou canst, thou secretly mayst pilfer. Not otherwise the cooks their scullions make, immerse into the middle of the cauldron the meat with hooks, so that it may not float. Said the good master to me that it be not, "Parent, thou art here, crouch thyself down behind a jag, that thou mayst have some screen. And for no outrage that is done to me, be thou afraid, because these things I know, for once before was I in such a scuffle." Next, please.
Then he passed on beyond the bridge's head. And as upon the sixth bank he arrived, need was for him to have a steadfast front. With the same fury and the same uproar as dogs leap out upon a mendicant, who on a sudden begs wherever he stops, they issued from beneath the little bridge and turned against him all their grappling irons, and he cried out, "Be none of you malignant. Before those hooks of yours lay hold of me, let one of you step forward who may hear me, and then take counsel as to grappling me." They all cried out, "Let Malacoda go." Whereat one started and the rest stood still, and he came to him saying, "What avails it?" "Thinkest thou, Malacoda, to behold me advanced into this place?" my master said, "safe hitherto from all your skills of fence, without the divine will and the fate auspicious? Let me go on, for it in heaven is willed that I another show this savage road." John?
Then was his arrogance so humbled in him that he let fall his grapnel at his feet, and to the others said, "Now strike him not." And unto me my guide said, "O thou who sittest among the splinters of the bridge crouched down, securely now return to me again." Wherefore I started and came swiftly to him, and all the devils forward thrust themselves, so that I feared they would not keep their compact. And thus beheld I once afraid the soldiers who issued under safeguard from Caprona, seeing themselves among so many foes. Close did I press myself with all my person beside my leader, and turned not mine eyes from off their countenance, which was not good. They lowered their rakes, and, "Wilt thou have me hit him?" they said to another, "on the rump?" and answered, "Yes, see that thou nick him with it." Next, please.
But the demon who was speaking with my leader turned round at once and said, "Easy does it, Scaglione." And then to us, "You can't continue farther down this ridge, for the sixth arch lies broken in pieces at the bottom. If you desire to continue on, then make your way along this rocky ledge. Nearby is another crag that yields a passage. Yesterday, at a time 5 hours from now, it was 1,266 years since the road down here was broken. I'm sending some men of mine along that way to see if anyone is out to take the air. Go with them. They won't hurt you." Next.
Step forward, Alecchino and Calcabrino. began he to cry out, and thou, Cagnazzo, and Barbariccia, do thou guide the 10. Come forward, Libicoco, and Dragignazzo, and Tuscid Ciriato, e Graffiacane, a Farfarello, and Mad Rubicante. Search ye all round about the boiling pitch. Let these be safe as far as the next craft, that all unbroken passes o'er the dens. Duncan.
Oh me, what is it, master, that I see? Pray, let us go, I said, without an escort. If thou knowest how, since for myself I ask none. If thou art as observant as thy wont is, dost thou not see that they do gnash their teeth, and with their brows are threatening woe to us? And he to me, I will not have thee fear. Let them gnash on according to their fancy, because they do it for those boiling wretches. Along the left-hand dike they wheeled about, but first had each one thrust his tongue between his teeth, towards their leader for a signal, and he had made a trumpet of his rump.
So what in this text that we've read has anything to do with any sin? And how could you tell it's barratry or anything else?
Aha,
Aha.
aha.
Well, they seem to be, these demons or whatever they are, seem to be working of throwing somebody over into the boiling cauldron or this boiling something below, and they're into this town. And there are barators except Bonturo. No until yes for money. There is changed. That's in the one trip. Tersic. So it's Tersic. Terset. Okay. Okay. The one terset there. Okay. And I don't have the number. My tersets are not numbered. So I think that's the only clue that I see.
And the names, all of those funny names, are the names of the demons. It's not the names of people who have committed barratry.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Well, let's go ahead. I suspect we will discover something as we go along.
Right.
Okay.
So let us proceed terset by terset. And John the Younger, why don't you go ahead and read what you consider is a good chunk.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. Yeah, from bridge to bridge, thus speaking other things of which my comedy cares not to sing, we came along and held the summit when we halted to behold another fissure of Malebolge and other vain laments, and I beheld it marvelously dark. As in the arsenal of the Venetians boils in the winter the tenacious pitch to smear their unsound vessel o'er again, for sail they cannot, and instead thereof one makes his vessel new, and one recalks the ribs of that which many a voyage has made. One hammers at the prow, one at the stern. This one makes oars, and that one cordage twists. Another mends the mainsail and the mizzen. Thus, not by fire, but by the art divine, was boiling down there below a dense pitch, which upon every side the bank belimed. I'm going to just stop there because, I mean, that's a kind of a descriptive thing, but there's a lot there. He packs an awful lot of like description or, comparison with, sounds to me like people repairing a ship in some kind of a dark place.
Yes.
Like they're all working on something, and he doesn't get into describing it yet, but he's comparing this to his dark. I get the image of a group of people working on building a ship, maybe, or repairing a ship, maybe that's been dry docked in some dark place, and he sees a lot of busyness, and He can make out certain things that they're doing, but cannot quite make it out. Something like that.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's go ahead and look at the first tercet. So they're walking along from bridge to bridge, thus speaking other things, of which my comedy cares not to say.
Hmm.
So he's not even going to bother to tell us what he and Virgil are talking about.
Yeah,
What
he's
he
done
says,
that before.
yeah.
Way back when he was in Limbo and he met Homer and Ovid and Horace. He
Mm-hmm.
says something there about they went along speaking about things that it's better not to. Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Right.
Uh,
But I think the important part here is he's directly, he didn't have to say this.
Right.
right.
So there is a method in his madness of telling us that there are some things he's simply not going to tell us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Back in 4, line 103. Thus we went on as far as to the light, things saying 'tis becoming to keep silent, as was the saying of them where I was. So again, he didn't have to tell us he's leaving stuff out, but
Yeah.
but he is telling us he's leaving stuff out,
yes.
and that's worth noting that he's not going to tell us everything.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think that and that this is the deliberate choice of which my comedy, of course it's his comedy, cares not to sing.
Hmm.
So we were walking down the road talking about this and that, which I'm not going to tell you about, and we came along and held the summit. When? And then we just have a little description. We halted to behold another fissure. So once again, things are in disrepair.
Mhm.
Other vain laments, and I held it marvelously dark.
Is this just an image of industry, something happening? He could have used any number of similes or whatever the word is to make his point about people working busy as bees, and they happen to be dealing with black pitch, which
Yeah.
actually, don't you use that when you're caulking your boat?
Right.
That's correct. And it's hot and it's sticky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You can imagine like people tarring a roof in our modern
Yeah.
experience.
I can smell it.
Or spreading a road, laying it down a road with tars.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's
So,
he
so he,
refers to the arsenal of Venetians too. So it's something that somebody, the Venetians of seagoing people, they had some kind of maybe some kind of well-known place where they would repair their ships like that, these wooden ships.
Well, in this case, they're actually in Venice.
The what?
They're at the docks. I mean, this is he is describing the docks in Venice.
right.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
In the wintertime, the Venetians would bring their ships in and they would boil the pitch and then they would retar the ships to, make them seaworthy again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the really important part here is that this is the punishment for the barrateurs.
Mm-hmm.
That, it's black and it's sticky and it's hot.
Yeah.
Okay, I accept that. It's black and it's sticky and it's hot.
Yeah.
He didn't
Mhm.
need to use the simile of Venetian shipbuilding. If he were in the 20th century, he could have used a simile. I'm not sure if I'm using simile right, of construction workers putting asphalt down on a street.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, is there anything unique to these Venetian ships that adds to the story in and of itself?
I don't
No,
see
I
it. I
think
think it's.
I don't think so either. I think it's just he picked something he knew about ships. That's what he used because he wanted to use black sticky stuff.
we wanted to use black sticky stuff as the punishment, the
Yeah.
contrapart.
I
Yeah.
think this is unusual. I don't recall similes where he goes on and on like this.
Right.
Mhm.
There was one. I'm trying to remember it. Let's see if I can. Can't find it, but it was something fairly recently that we read. Can't find it. It'll come back to me when I have a chance to look. But I think there was another thing where he went on with a long description.
Mm.
Oh, coming down on Geryon, how he banked he banked like he was flying.
Mhm.
That was an awful lot of description.
Mhm.
And this is a device that you see in Homer, where the simile starts off with a point of comparison, but then it just goes off. It has a life of its own. Like, if I can think of one off the top of my head. Hephaestus, the god of the forage, gets up at an early hour, and it's the hour when a widow who has to get up and do her weaving does, because she has to feed her children, and on and on. And most of the simile has nothing directly to do. There's an initial similarity, and then it just goes off. And
Mhm.
I guess that's what Dante's doing here.
Mm.
Because by line 9, the image is already there.
Yeah.
By the boiling pitch is already there. But
Yeah,
anyway,
he's kind of belaboring the point here.
Well, he's belaboring. Well, there's actually two things going on. One is uh, getting us familiar with pitch. And then I think the other thing is that the reason why he goes on, one hammers at the prow, one at the stem, this one makes oars, that one cordage twist. He's saying there's a lot of devils and they're all busy.
Right. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of busy devils on there.
A lot of busy devils, and so for whatever reason, they are particularly interested in tormenting the Baraters.
Yeah.
Okay, where did you end your reading, John?
It was just which upon every side the bank belined. That was the last line.
Oh, okay. I think we're up to line 19.
That would be right. Probably. It sounds right.
Okay, so Lois, you want to go on?
I saw the pitch, but still saw nothing in it except the bubbles raised up by the boiling, the whole mass swelling and then settling back. While I stared fixedly upon the seething pitch, my leader cried, look out, and drew me to him away from where I stood. Then I turned like a man, intent on making out what he must run from, undone by sudden fear, who does not slow his flight for all his looking back. Just so, I caught a glimpse of some dark devil running toward us up the ledge. Ah, how ferocious were his looks and fierce his gesturing, with wings spread wide and nimble feet. One of his shoulders, which were high and pointed, was laden with the haunches of a sitter he held, hooked by the tendons of his heels. From our bridge, he said, O Malabranque, here is one of Santa Zita's elders. Thrust him under, while I head back for more, to that city where there's such a fine supply. Every man there, except Bonturo, is a swindler. There, money turns a no into a yeah. So now we got something to discuss.
Yeah.
We do.
How did you translate how's your translation refer to the baratier? Mine says there are barators except Bonturo. What does yours say, Lois?
Mine says, let me go back. Every single man there except Bonturo is a swindler. So it's an individual person. It's not the sin. This is Bonturo, not Baratry.
Okay, well, they refer him. He's saying they're all swindlers. Is what that's how they're swindler.
Right.
Yeah, all right.
But he's saying everybody but Bonturo is a swindler.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, for some reason, yeah. So let's see if we can find out who Monturo is.
Yeah, I have a note on that.
Okay.
The jeering, well, first of all, Saint Zita is the patron saint of Lucca. So I'm talking about Lucca. Except Bonturo, the jeering sarcasm of this touch is evident. Bonturo is actually the worst barator of all, and in Lucca, every public official is corrupt, it seems. He was the head of the popular party in Lucca at the beginning of the 14th century. He appears to have bought and sold public offices on so grand a scale that he controlled nearly all such traffic in the city.
Okay, but of course, a modern leader would have no idea.
There are citations there.
So this is sarcasm.
To us.
This is sarcasm where he says everybody except Bonturo is a swindler.
It is sarcasm. And thank God for notes. Because until that note was read, I certainly did not take it as sarcasm. I was actually going, well, why wasn't Monturo a barator? No into yes for money there is changed. So that's a pretty succinct description of graft or bribery right there.
Yeah.
No into yes for money there is change.
So my translation used the word swindler for a baratier.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but swindler, actually, I don't think swindler is appropriate.
No, I think it's a bad translation.
It's a bad translation because a swindler, a barator is basically, doing a straight up deal for the person who's beaten with.
This basically has to do with graft.
Yes.
So these
graft.
Yes. So these are grafters. I don't know if there's such a thing as a grafter, like a grifter, but these are grafters.
Yeah. Huh.
And what do we know about Santa Zita and her elders?
Just that Lucca, the city of Lucca, was apparently notorious for this kind of corruption.
I've got a note here on Zita. Zita was a young servant woman of Lucca, dead in the 1270s. to whom were reputed great kindness and numerous miracles. While she was not canonized until 1690, she was reputed a saint shortly after her death, and her cult flourished around her tomb in the church of San Frediano in Lucca. Don't know if that adds anything to us.
Mm-hmm.
The elders of Lucca were the city's magistrates, and we're calling these people Santa Zita's elders. Yeah. I think that's a little slanted explanation. It's not really right on the money. All right, so Santa Zita was a saint, okay. And she came from Lucca, okay. Here is one of Santa Zita's elders. Thrust him under while I head back from home. Maybe they just equate Zita as the patron saint of Lucca.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder what Dante's attitude was towards Zita.
Yeah, I mean, my note says she was a saint. Who knows?
Hmm.
No,
Anyway, we know that the devils really want to be deviled, these baraters. They're working hard at tormenting them.
Yeah. And it's he earlier Dante refers to not by fire, but by the art divine was boiling down below there a dense pitch. It's almost like these are like divinely ordered demons that are working on this here, working on these other devils.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the image that they have of the large black devil sounds like he's almost as the kind of I can just imagine how he he inspires an image of a lot of the devils that were drawn or etched in later times, or if actually it's really a typical devil, with his wings and light upon his feet, well, his shoulders sharp pointed high, and he held clutches the sinews of the feet. It almost sounds like a gargoyle maybe.
Mm-hmm. Gigantic bat.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, a bat. There you go. Yeah.
Another interesting thing, the line 37, I guess the devil who's carrying the person calls to another one, and his name is Malebranche, which would be evil claws.
Yes.
Claws. Yeah.
Claws. And I think when we get toward the end of it, that part that I was stumbling over when I was reading, I think probably some of those names, or maybe all of those names, are going to have some meaning too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm looking at some notes from Bartolini, and she's saying that perhaps one reason why Dante is spending so much time and so much graphic description here is that he was accused. Baratri was leveled against Dante and other Bianchi, the white party to which Dante belonged, when the Neri, the blacks, came to power.
Hmm.
And it's actually one of the reasons that Dante was forced into exile.
Oh.
So I think that may explain kind of the ferocity of the devils and of the punishment in this particular section.
But
Hmm.
why is it just sort of glossed over? The sin. It's mentioned once, right? We just had it mentioned calling these people barators or whatever we're going to call them. And that's all. There's no examples of them. There's, except for Bantura, who he says wasn't one. It seems deliberate misdirection or something. And if it's a sin that he was accused of, would you expect a little bit more detail?
Perhaps so.
Yeah.
Well, they're still in the same place in the next canto. So perhaps there will be more specifics there.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, there's something here.
Because the conversation is with Virgil before you grapple me with your hooks, and it's this argument between Virgil and the demons.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But what comes out of it?
Well, the demon doesn't hook him for one thing.
Right. Also, do you really trust these demons at the end? Oh yeah, you can't go here, but my friend will show you another way. I wouldn't trust a demon who told me follow my friend to take you another way.
You bring up you bring up an excellent point. And actually it is part of the design of this particular Canti. And
Okay.
the design is to show us that the demons who are handling these tricky barators, grafters, swindlers, tricksters, are also grafters, swindlers, and tricksters.
Okay.
And that they are going to sweet talk Dante and Virgil as in an attempt to trick them.
My general sense, and the reason I'm making such a big issue out of this is it seems like a non-issue, this whole canto. Okay, we see the demons doing the thing, and then Virgil and Dante move on. There's nobody saying, oh yes, I committed this sin. There's nobody saying I only committed this sin because my brother made me do it. I mean, there's no discussion of the sin. And John, maybe what you're saying, we're moving into the next canto. Could we have gotten there without this canto? I mean, why? I'm just throwing out the purpose. I don't understand the purpose of this canto because it doesn't get you anywhere except this vision of hell with a black pitch, which we all came to know as children. And there is a sin going on here, but there's not a lot of discussion of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the chapter just seems to be showing how horribly the demons are treating the people in this location.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But am I learning anything from this telling me how to live my life?
Would you repeat that, please?
Reading this chapter, is it teaching me anything about how I should live my life? Because the others are usually examples of these are sins you shouldn't commit, and this is why. And then we move on to the next one. This is a terrible sin, and this is why.
Well, I guess that presupposes that he's writing this poem as some sort of a didactic exercise, warning people about the devil, the dangers of hell, trying to paint a picture of, be good or you're going to go here. I think there's something more going on here, and I don't know. This is seems to be a little bit more of it's a theological, political tract of some kind.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's why I'm wondering, am I missing something? Is there something here that I'm just missing? But we're only halfway through it, so maybe there's more.
well, yeah, and I guess if you look at the whole thing, I mean, it's like, we're only a fraction of the way through. If you're looking at the whole, Purgatorio and
Yeah.
Paradise, the lesson may not be entirely clear until you read the whole thing. So, but I think the best we can do is try to kind of parse out, well, what is he talking about here? What possible symbolism is here? What's he referring to? I think there's a lot more going on here. Maybe I was just kind of scanning a little bit of Robert Hollander's commentary, and he also mentions the idea that Dante was exiled on the charge of barratry, and he also says Dante was present at the successful siege of Caprona in 1289. A cavalryman observing the success of the mission of his Tuscan Guelphs against this Pisan stronghold. It is to his lasting credit, this is Hollander now, that what he remembers for us is how the victims must have felt when they came out under a pact of safe conduct. So I guess he's referring to talking about these devils. Dante, exiled on the charge of barratry by his fellow citizens, here perhaps means to remind them that he had borne arms on behalf of the Republic in its victories. The siege of Caprona in August of 1289, the previous great victory at Campaldino that June, referred to later in this scene, Inferno 22, verses 4 and 5. He was not a grafter scheming in the dark, but a cavalryman who did his deeds in the fearsome clarity of war. So that's, he kind of goes on and on about this, but there seems to be a lot here about referring to, Dante's own experience and how this is relating to that. So.
Well, I think we've done everything we can do in that section.
Right.
So, Big John, is that you? I don't want to say old John. John Major. John Major as opposed to John Minor.
John the Elder.
I think we're at 46.
We could use the Latin major. It sounds like greater, but the full phrase is greater by birth.
Yeah, you're selling a
by birth part.
Yeah,
even the Romans would leave out the by birth part because it was just assumed.
Yeah.
So I could be greater John and lesser John.
Like the Antilles.
Oh, right.
Okay. I've got to find my.
I think we're at 46.
At 46, yes. The other sank and rose again face downward, but the demons under cover of the bridge cried, "Here the Santo Volto has no place. Here swims one otherwise than in the Circia. Therefore, if for our gaffs thou wishest not, do not uplift thyself above the pitch." They seized him then with more than 100 rakes. They said, "It here behoves thee to dance covered, that if thou canst, thou secretly mayst pilfer. That otherwise the cooks their scullions make, immerse into the middle of the cauldron the meat with hooks, so that it may not float." So that's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
I have a picture here of the Volto Santo, the sacred face, and crucifix in the carved wood in the cathedral at Lucca. If you can shift this to maybe shift to presenter mode or whatever it's called.
Mhm. Speaker.
So
Oh, okay, let's see here. How do we do speaker?
speaker, that's what it is, yeah.
Let's see here.
I'm going to switch to
Do
speaker
that.
too, so we can see what it looks like.
Yeah, I can make it out. Sure.
Yeah, I guess I have to speak in order for
Yeah,
it
yeah,
to be visible.
yeah.
So,
I can make it out okay.
mhm. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, I was looking at Hollander says the ironic edge of the devil's remark is it is variously interpreted depending on the meaning of convolto. Does this sinner return to the surface with his face now covered with pitch, in which case he resembles the ebony face of Christ on the much venerated image of the crucifixion in San Martina in Luke?
Oh,
Or is he bent in two, emerging with his backside from the pitch, in which case he looks like a citizen of Lucca kneeling to prostrate himself before the image? So there's some debate among interpreters what this intended to mean. Strong arguments are made for each interpretation, each supported by a further text in 22, in which the sinners in this bolgia are compared second to frogs and with only their snouts out of water, first to dolphins showing their backs as they move through water. So there's some that gets into deeper stuff that gets into the 22. Well, so he says that Hollander says the Serchio is the river near Lucca in which citizens swam for refreshment in the days of summer, that the devil's address Martino would tend to support the notion that it is head as surface rather than his rump. And they would seem to be saying, man, that's no way to do your imitation of the holy visage. And so there's some parodic intent, maybe try to evoke some parodic intent as if, well, he's sort of, yeah, some sort of intent about, well,
any joke that needs that much of an explanation.
I was going to say, it kind of loses something. If you have to explain a joke, it's not that funny. So, well, they seem to be making fun in some sort of a nasty way. There's demonic fun here.
Okay.
Yeah, well. So anyways, they're boiling this guy in their pitch, in this pitch, it seems like. So, and having some fun with him.
Have we finished that section?
I have no idea.
I'm finished with it. And
Yeah, I think we've done all we can with discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, who's the next reader then?
I think you are.
Okay, and what line am I reading from?
52.
52. They see.
I'm sorry, I think it might have been 49. I skipped a one.
49.
Yeah,
Here's
41.
one. Otherwise, and then the Circio. Therefore, if our gaffs thou wishest not, do not uplift yourself above the pitch. They seized him then with more than 100 rakes. They said, if here behooves thee to dance covered, that if thou canst, thy secretly mayest pilfer. Not otherwise, the cooks their scullions make, immerse in the middle of the cauldron, the meat with hooks, so that it may not float. That's pretty graphic.
Mm. Yeah.
So it seems to me that Dante is being particularly ferocious in the punishments here.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be a lot more painful or uh, whatever word is atrocious than to the Simonists.
Yeah, maybe it's the translators, but anyway, I mean, it's all very graphic and very violent.
Mhm.
Yeah, very violent. Yeah.
Well, and uh, it not in every rung do you have third parties inflicting punishment, right? Like the heretics were just
Right.
sitting in their tombs with the heat, and even in the last group, they're stuck head down, but there's nobody else tormenting them. But um, the panderers, there were devils around with whips to hit them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that maybe adds to uh, the horror of it when there are actual punishers there.
Right.
Can we go back? Can we go back to that line that talks about pilfering? Then with 100 hooks and more, they ripped him, crying, "Here you must do your dance in secret and pilfer in the dark." What are they pilfering?
I think this is part of their mockery. Their mockery of this
Yeah.
Saul. Here you can do this. You can do this if you can't. That if thou canst, no, you can at least you can still continue to pilfer here. You can dance covered here, and you're all protected here. Something like that, I think.
You must do your dance in secret and
Yeah,
pilfer
yeah.
in the dark.
Mm.
I know what the point is. Keep underneath the pitch. That's what he's
Yeah,
being
yeah,
told.
yeah.
But it seems an odd way to say it. Do your dance in secret. What's that referring to? I don't know. And pilfer in the dark.
I think it's a kind of reference to what barratry is.
That's what I'm getting at, but I don't see it.
Do it in secret in the dark.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so, the punishment is going to have some relationship to the crime. And so the punishment by being sticky and dark and hidden
Mhm.
is very similar to the way the crime is committed.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay.
And it's sarcastic because they say if you can,
Yeah.
Right.
and of course he can't.
No.
There's nothing to pilfer.
No. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Read on.
Yes, I think so.
Where
We're in 21, Dee Dee.
I know what,
Oh, Dee has showed up.
Line 58.
thank you.
And you'll have to,
Believe me, I wanted to show up earlier.
okay, so I think it's my turn to read then. So
Mhm.
said the good master to me, that it be not apparent thou art here, crouch thyself down behind a jag, that thou mayest have some screen. And for no outrage that is done to me, be thou afraid, because these things I know, for once before was I in such a scuffle. Then he passed on beyond the bridge's head, as upon the sixth bank he arrived. Need was for him to have a steadfast front, with the same fury and the same uproar as dogs leap out upon a mendicant when a sudden begs where he stops. They issued from beneath the little bridge and turned against him all their grappling irons. But he cried out, be none of you malignant. Before those hooks of yours lay hold of me, and let one of you step forward who may hear me, and then take counsel as to grappling me. So I'll stop there. So Virgil is telling Dante to screen himself, to hide down here behind this some sort of a rock there, and he refers to some scuffle that he's had before, and then he confronts these demons who come out, attack him like a bunch of dogs, and as if they're going to attack him, and with their grappling irons, and he urges them to stop to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, he's and I guess I was looking at Hollander here. He may be referring to his difficulties with the devils in the walls of Dis, or to some skirmish he had with these devils in his previous journey to lower hell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is a parallel there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So
Yeah, that experience leads Dante to worry about Virgil's ability in handling devils
yeah.
correctly.
But there he was dealing with the sinners themselves, wasn't he?
No, it was the
Not
devils
the
up on the wall. It was devils up on the wall.
up. Okay.
Remember they crossed that river of wrath, I think, and
Mhm.
then they got outside the walls of the city of Dis, and up on the walls of the city of Dis were these devils,
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was misremembering.
which would not let them pass. So Virgil freaked out,
Mhm.
and actually he gave up. But then, what was it? Saint Michael, I think it was,
Oh, yeah.
came to the rescue.
Right.
But not before Dante was kind of looking at Virgil and saying,
Yeah.
am I right to trust this guy so much?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of to me, a disturbing element about Inferno. The supreme being is employing some pretty unattractive characters. It seems like the punishers aren't uh, much better than those who are being punished.
Right.
You know, you had Cerberus, the mad dog.
Right.
You had the Minotaur. then you have, these guys, they're ready to turn on anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little alarming.
I agree.
I mean, it raises the question, were they employed for this reason because of that nature, or does spending eternity inflicting pain on people turn you into a monster yourself? I don't know if Dante was thinking in those
Yeah.
terms.
Yeah. That would be.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's almost like are these demons, these tormentors, from further down below, and what sin have they committed now? That it says this is maybe their sort of reward, where they're like a bunch of psychopaths or something like that who've been condemned to hell, and this is their reward for being psychopathic. So
Then there was that, was it the Stanford experiment?
yeah, the Milgram experiment at Stanford, yeah, where people were the test was that you had to you took instructions from somebody to increase the electrical voltage onto a supposed victim, and there was an attempt to learn how far people would go to inflict pain on others, even though it was all faked, but they didn't know that. And yeah, that's a famous experiment about how people are willing to follow orders, even if it causes pain to others. They have no kind of internal conflict.
I bet there's something in the scholarship about this question. His assigning certain monsters to be the punishers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's that similar question about could Jesus have redeemed us all if Judas didn't betray him? Was Judas really working for God?
Yeah.
Hmm. Say more, Lois.
Just that, do we all have free will? B, is God directing us to do things even if they're bad things, if they serve his purpose? I know this is all blasphemy. Don't hold me to this, but it's just the argument.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a book somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's about Judas and his role and why he was necessary. And
So-
it was part of God's plan.
Yeah.
So
Without Judas, there would have been no Jesus. Basically, is that argument?
Give me a second. Give me a second. Let's see if I can find this. Let me see if I can find this here. Here we are. The work of betrayal. I'm coming back. The work of betrayal. And it discusses Judas as an integral part of God's plan, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think what you said is that Judas prevented Jesus from saving our souls.
He didn't, because Judas was there to betray him in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus was taken and was crucified. What if Judas had refused to betray Jesus? How would we have been redeemed?
Huh. I see what you're saying.
Well, I just throw that out.
No, that's interesting. What the book, Lois? What is it actually, what is the story it tells?
It's a discussion. It's really a discussion, I think maybe even between Satan and someone else. I read this a long time ago, but it's a discussion. Let's see if I can. It's sort of a detective book almost, and it's a discussion. Again, I haven't read this in 30 years. It's just sitting on the shelf, but it obviously it stuck with me. The concept stuck with me.
I've heard that. I've heard that. I've heard that explanation before somewhere. I don't know.
Let me write the name of the book down again.
Okay, it's The Work of Betrayal. And the author, it was written in a different language, it was translated. Mario, Mario, Brelich, Brelich, who's Hungarian and Italian.
Thank you.
Well, that gets into the whole, big issue about determinism and free will, doesn't it? I think, but yeah, well.
But if there is free will,
I think Lois brought up a kind of important point, because in much of the other part of the Inferno, basically the sinners are being punished by themselves.
Yeah. So
and I think there are other examples of devils, doing the punishing, but in this particular one, it's particularly graphic.
Yeah.
And it is true, there, at least in my mind, there is a big difference between sinners punishing themselves and sinners being punished by other agents.
Right.
Well, there's also the question of these agents seem to be enjoying it.
Right.
Earlier, where they were getting whipped, he said something like, "There aren't any women down here for you to trade in," and hit him, but it didn't. It seemed neutral. It wasn't clear that the people doing the whipping were enjoying it, whereas these demons in this canto seem to like their work.
Well, maybe this will be explained in the next, in the forthcoming, later ones here. How these demons end up being there, how they end up, what kind of agents are they?
I had visions of them applying for the job. Can you see their resumes?
Oh my God.
Well, these are people that you can imagine being the torture masters for inquisitors and kings or other kinds of people of power.
But in the Roman world, there were certainly professional torturers.
Yeah, exactly.
For slaves, testimony would be taken under torture, and so there were people who were expert at inflicting the pain without doing permanent damage. I have to run because I've got a doctor's appointment coming up that I have to get to. This annual checkup.
Yep.
So I'm going to leave now.
Okay, John.
Okay.
See you next week.
time, Big.
See you next week. We'll see you, John.
So Duncan, could you send me the recording? I missed the whole thing. There was a sudden interruption.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. I enjoyed last week's conversation. I would love to find why the mythic characters who are part of the drama, why they were chosen. And I was wondering if there's some link to that. I just really don't have time to do more than ask the question.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's why I believe the plan is that we will continue reading until we finish with this reading of the Commedia, and then we will start again because it's a big project.
It's huge. The Harvard, tell me again how to link into this, because I might find some time to type in the question and see if I get anywhere.
Well, I think you probably talked about Digital Dante,
Yeah.
Barolini, and that's at Columbia University.
Oh, this is all about Barolini?
Yeah, it's all Barolini. And the
Ah.
Digital Dante is pretty much Barolini. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Isn't there another one that gets you
There
into?
are lots of major sites for
Uh-huh.
Dante. It's amazing how many there are. The two sites that I typically use are the Digital Dante and then the Dante Project at Dartmouth University. Those are the two that I typically use.
Okay, if I find some time to do homework.
Yeah, I'll do well.
I think
Okay.
yeah.
I'm glad that you're able to come. Thank you, everybody, and we
Okay.
expect to
Thank
gather.
you.
Okay, so we'll start next week on what line is that then? What,
Somebody
76. I
Seven-
think 76.
76?
76.
76. Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll see you next week then. Bye, everyone.
Okay,
Okay,
guys.
thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.